I already introduced Maria, but I'll do it again. Maria, more famous in Italy than here, won a prestigious prize for her work on this issue. Who knows, you know, our county may become famous too, as we move forward and really lead the way on this issue. And I guess that's why we do have the attention of some bigger forces out there, because this is the beginning of a bigger struggle. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, thank you also for, on my part, for being here today and for being so patient until, 2 o'clock, listening to, all sorts of oil disasters. So, right, this is my story, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background before, giving you the details of this work and why it came to be that I became, this, activist all the way in Italy. I was actually born in the U.S. of Italian parents, and I lived there for 6 or 7 years when I was young, and then we sort of did back and forth between New York and Italy. So I lived in this, but if you can move on to the next, I lived in this particular region of Italy, which is called Abruzzo, for about 10 years of my life when I was a teenager. And right, it's actually a very beautiful part of Italy. People don't really know too much about it because it's not very, it's not mainstream tourism. But again, a third of its land is designated as national park. And if you go to the websites of Abruzzo, the official website, they will tell you all sorts of, magnificent things that we have set. Again, a third of our territory aside as a park. We hold cultural and civil records for protection of the environment. And this is the real green heart of the Mediterranean. This is what they will tell you on the websites, okay? But again, politicians will write something on their websites, but they will do something else in their real lives. So, right, and these are just some pictures of really how, again, beautiful this part of the world is. These actually were old, fishermen, places where they would collect fish. They were built in the 1800s. This is part of a national park, La Costa dei Trabocchi. Then we have, you can actually go on, this other place called La Marina di Vasto. There is Lago di Bomba, and I'm showing all these places because actually they want to drill in all of these places. They're not just picked at random, okay? Il Lago di Bomba, this is actually, you can't see this very well, but this is Punta d'Erci. This is, again, all water, and this is all some park up here. And again, if you have heard of Abruzzo at all, it may be because of its wine. This is where we make Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, and this is the region that I'm talking about. Yellow is where all the vineyards are located, and the reason they don't grow grapes inland is because it's just too cold, okay? And we make olive oil, and again, similarly to wine, everything is located along the coastline, okay? And another thing that maybe you have seen in the supermarket is this kind of pasta. I am not paid by them to advertise in this location, but this is where we make, and the difference between this and Barilla is that Barilla is made over here. This is actually made in Italy with, water that comes straight from the mountain. So this is our, claim to fame. Okay, and so right, you see all this beautiful, environment, etc. And what do we have? We have, underneath all of this, we have heavy sour crude, okay? So we have oil deposits, and heavy sour means that, again, the oil deposits are rich with impurities, in particular of sulfur impurities, and heavy means that, the molecules are, complex molecules, much more complex than the ones that are used for gasoline. So they need special treatment if you want to turn it into gasoline. Okay, and this is a picture of Abruzzo, and everything that you see, so this is the contour of the region right here, right? And everything that is dark green, these are national parks, and all the other colors that you see here, those are all oil and gas leases, okay? Different colors means that they are at different stages of their advancement in the authorization process, but you see we've got all sorts of leases onshore and offshore, and as you can also tell, all of the onshore leases actually coincide with the agricultural land, okay? So just maybe we can skip this because we don't have too much time. Actually, you can go ahead a little bit more. Okay, so the very brief history is that, again, Italy was drilled for oil right after World War II. After the war, everybody, Americans and Italians, started drilling the country because they were looking for oil. Whatever was viable, was easy to drill, was already taken out back in the 50s and 60s. Okay, and today, and on the after all this, oil development back then, the company that sort of was involved in all this is called Ente Nazionale Idrocarburi. This is the national Italian company. It's actually, at this time, it's still 30% state-owned, and they operate in 70 countries. They are Italy's largest legal company because if you consider legal and illegal, the largest company is the mafia. But if you only look at legal companies, they are the largest legal company. They make all these billions of dollars in revenue, and again, it's difficult for me to explain to an American audience how enmeshed and how corrupt the whole system is, but they control 100% of many things, including this AGI, which is the National Italian Press Agency. So it's as if Chevron owned, the Associated Press. Okay? So they have tight control over the media. Things that would not happen anywhere else can happen in Italy. Okay? And actually, many people don't even know this. So they really have a way of manipulating information. They were just one back. They were accused. In 2010, they went through some settlement with the Security and Exchange Commission here in the United States for bribes and corruption of Nigerian officials. And at the time, this was the biggest bribing scheme that had ever been fined by this SEC office. Okay, and one more slide now. Okay, and again, and the context of all this, again, is this is happening, this story is unfolding in Italy, where again, the system is much more corrupt than it is here. If you think that this is corrupt, you haven't really seen much. Okay, so this is Transparency International. This is an agency, international agency that gives out rankings for corruption in the world. So the low numbers mean that you are not corrupt. So Denmark is the least corrupt country on the planet, together with New Zealand. Then we have Finland and Sweden. Okay, Italy ranks 69. That means that there's about 70 countries that are less corrupt than us. And if you look at this list, the US is 19 and China is 80. Okay, so we are on the low end of this scale. Okay. Okay, so now here comes, so this is a little bit of background, okay? So now it comes to the story that I want to tell you, which is that in 2007, I had just started my job at, as a university professor, and some friend calls me just to say hello from Italy, and it was just a conversation that we were having, and he's like, oh, Maria, there is this talk of some oil stuff, but it's not clear what's going on, and, people are talking about this, but, it's very vague. And so I was like, but can you please tell me more about this? Because, the idea of oil fields in this part of, my part of the world was very distressing to me. And he said, well, but don't worry about it, because there's nothing you can do about it. You live so far, and the system here is just, just forget about it. Don't worry about that. But I could not sleep that night, and I, started this campaign that has lasted for all these years. And this is some of the portions that we put this together over time. But what happened is that between 2001 and 2007, this company called Eni, they were planning to build an oil field with 5 to 7 wells, a refinery, pipelines, and also a wastewater well. And the whole project was to, in total, over 30 years of operation, they were going to pull out 40 million barrels of oil, which is 1 month of Italy's need. Again, over 40 years of operation. And again, as I said before, the oil was very low quality. It had a lot of sulfur impurities, and it was actually listed for the investors, not for the people, but it was, if you went to read the investor reports, they were claiming that this was going to be their largest project in Italy, okay? People knew nothing about this, but, the investors knew everything. And I learned about this just by going to read the investor reports, okay? And you would say, well, but how can all this planning go on for 6 years and nobody knows anything about this? Well, some people knew. And one of the people who knew was actually the mayor of the town where this was going to happen. And he knew. And what did he do? Instead of alerting his community and helping to, spread out, information or whatever, he decided to go create his own petroleum company, okay? So the idea was that he was going to get some kind of, work or whatever, commissions from the oil company, the big oil company, and in return, the mayor would give oil leases locally to the oil company itself, okay? So it was like, I give you this, you give me that. Okay? And these are just things that me and my brother uncovered over, several months. And right, this was a 300,000, contract between the mayor and the oil company, another one for 800,000 euros. And, we could find all of these things. That were, again, everything was online, okay? And again, because the mayor had his own interest, and again, this is a very corrupt society where nobody will stand against, the other politicians didn't stand against this mayor simply because, they all owed each other favors or, they were all on the side of, power. So the entire city council actually was in favor of this. Several political parties. This, as at the time, was the regional the equivalent of the local, let's call him Minister for the Environment on a regional scale, and this was at the time the governor of the region. Okay, they had all put their signatures on all these documents authorizing these oil operations to go forward, but the people knew absolutely nothing about it. Okay, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is the site that they had picked for the oil refinery. It's again a mixture of olive trees and vineyards, and again the idea was to uproot all this and to put a refinery on top of it, right? Okay, and how did people find out? They found out in 2007 because they were starting to do some tests, and they started seeing black smoke coming out of the ground, okay? Now, some people had been told that this was just, that they were just bringing gas pipelines to people's houses, and most of all, they also played with words because they were calling the refinery that they were going to build, instead of calling it refinery, they called it an oil center. And as I was saying this morning, to any Italian, the word all oil means olive oil, okay? And oil is petroleum, okay? If you want to call it, you call it petroleum, not oil. And they were actually using also English words. So, and also that land had olive trees on top of it, so people actually thought that maybe it was an olive oil processing, facility. There was a lot of confusion. Okay, and they were telling people that this was pipelines for natural gas. Okay, and again, all permits had been given out, and the governor, he had actually said that this was a great opportunity for economic development, Right, that this was going to bring jobs and prosperity. We're going to fix all of our debts in this state, and we're going to become rich, just like Texas, and all sorts of things. Okay. Later, this guy was arrested for criminal association, fraud, corruption, and extortion. But at the time, he was the governor. Okay. And so when I sort of got hold of this, I was like, what can I do? So, and again, remember, I was living here in California. I was not there, and I knew nobody. So I started, of course, reading by myself. I went to read all the investor reports that I could, find online. And then I decided to write to some newspapers. In particular, they had like an expat type of, online thing where you could just, write letters. And I wrote a letter to them. I also wrote to the mayor because at the time I didn't know how, corrupt he was. I simply thought that he just didn't know what he was doing. I thought that he was in good faith and that really the oil companies had sort of brainwashed him into, the fact that this was going to give them work and prosperity. So I also wrote to the mayor. And then I wrote to the bishops of the era, 2 or 3 bishops, because, right, this is a part of the world where the church has a lot of influence. And so I thought, well, if I am able to, convince the bishops of, doing something against this, maybe, something will get done. I got no responses except from some people who read my email to the newspaper. Somebody emailed me back and said, well, we are a group of local people. We have absolutely no clue what's happening here, so we would appreciate it if you could help us in any way. So I decided to, start working with just on a very, very simple basis. But it was clear to me that I couldn't do much because, again, I was living here. So I tried to, talk to everybody, who could do something because they physically live there. So I remember that, again, I emailed a bunch of local mayors around there, not just the mayor of that town, but also nearby towns, and no response. I went to look at, it took me like 2 weeks to do this. I emailed all the university people that I could find their emails because I thought, well, academics are supposed to try to do something to better their own communities. And I emailed, dozens of people, but nobody responded. And whoever did respond either said that I was crazy or that they didn't have time for this. And I also tried to contact some, very important, large green organizations, the World Wildlife Fund, some more Italian-based organizations. Greenpeace also has a chapter in Abruzzo. So I emailed all these people, but nobody wanted to do anything. And then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to have to try to do my best by myself. And I started by polling my mother. Now,